Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction. I'm going to try to share my screen now. There we go. Let me get going. Hello and welcome, everyone. I mess this up half the time, so let me just know, can you see my screen where it says Decision Catalyst, Six Sales and Marketing Factors?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let's jump in. And here's what I want to start by asking you. Why are you here today attending this webinar? Right? Because that's what we're trying to figure out, right? This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to say yes. For whatever reason, Score got you to say yes to come here today. If we can better figure out why we say yes to things, maybe we can better figure out why our customers say yes. And I'm not saying the specific reasons. We've all got specific reasons. I'm saying the general way decisions are made because our customers might not be us, right? They might have different reasons than us. But if we can understand the general way that these decisions are made, that these yeses happen, we can get more ourselves. So we're going to talk about a lot today. We're going to talk about this patented methodology. It's based on a lot of marketing experiments. It's going to look complex. I'm going to make it very simple, but it all kind of boils down to this, right? There's perceived value and there's perceived cost. And if the perceived value, not the actual value, because you don't know yet, right? Before you actually logged into this webinar, you didn't know if it was going to be horribly painful or helpful. You didn't know what it was. But you perceived value, you had a certain perceived value about this webinar and you thought that the perceived value was more than the perceived cost. You've been presented with other decisions this month, this week, maybe even today, where you're like, you know what? The cost of that's probably going to be more than the value. I'm saying no. Now, when we talk about perceived value and perceived cost, we're going to get deeper into that. That's just what we call a heuristic. It's a thought tool. It's going to help. Again, it looks complex. I'm going to simplify it. We're going to make it easier. But when we talk about perceived value and perceived cost, what you know, some of those letters in red, which you're going to learn, are some of the costs. We're not just talking about money. Like when you attended today, I don't exactly, I'll admit, I'm kind of new to Score. It seems like a great organization. I always love something here in Jacksonville. But I don't think you had to pay anything monetarily, right? But sometimes when we're selling to customers, we only focus on that monetary cost. There are other costs. You are busy people. You could be doing a lot of other things right now. You could be working on your business, or heck, it's a beautiful summer day. Most of us from Florida, we could just be at the beach. But you're not. You took the time, you took the cost to be here. So when we think about the decisions we're asking our customers to make, I want to ask you to try to get in their shoes and think like the customer. And to do that right now, think to yourself, why are you here? Why was the perceived value more than the perceived cost, right? Now, a second element of this is I got to deliver some actual value now, right? So I'm really thankful that you saw the perceived value is more than the cost. But when you get off this webinar, the perceived value goes out the window. You got some actual value today. And as Shai mentioned, here's how you can help do that. To me, webinars, it's this beautiful thing because it's this rare thing today. We're in the same space virtually at the same time, caring about the same things. So you have two choices. You could just sit back and check your email and check your phone. You got a lot going on and half listen or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Or you can activate that brain. And I want to help you do that. I want to serve you today. If you have questions, as Shai mentioned, ask them. I put together a lot of slides today, but these slides don't matter. What matters is you. What matters is delivering value to you. So any questions you have, ask them. Let's try to get off this call today, at the end of this call today, by helping you have an idea for how you can improve something with your business. I think that should be on two levels. I love Stephen Covey. I don't know if anyone's a Covey fan on the call. He's got his quadrants. There's the important and urgent. So if you're on the call today, if you're thinking through what is some important, urgent thing that I could do this week, today, with what I'm learning to get a yes, that's a great thing to have in one part of your mind. But the other part of your mind also, I think it will fail you if I just did that. I want to give you a new way of thinking about your business and marketing. And you know, there's a lot of things out there about marketing, about when you talk about winning a yes, it's like, seems like some kind of cheap shots. I'm going to teach you about a different type of marketing. So hopefully, maybe just a small level puts a little kernel in your mind of like, let me look at marketing in my business in a new way. And I was just looking at some of the comments earlier. I saw Eva. Hi, Eva from Jax. She said, I'm looking for help to get potential event organizers to say yes. That's a great way of thinking, coming in with an explicit goal that you're trying to reach. Okay. So again, why are you here? Why do we make decisions? We do because the perceived value is more than the perceived cost. That's general. That's high level. We're going to dive in. We're going to look at that. Looks like a formula. It's actually called a heuristic, a thinking tool to help you step by step understand how to make these changes. So briefly, I don't want to get into too much. Shai already mentioned me, but one of the things we have to set up is credibility. Why should you even bother listening to me? So I've done this for a long time, a quarter of a century. I've been a copywriter, worked in advertising, sales enablement, all these things. I coach people now, we do all these things. But I think a key thing where I may be a little different than some presenters you've heard before is with Marketing Sherpa, I interview a lot of marketers and entrepreneurs. I mean, thousands I've interviewed we write case study articles with, marketing. I have the How I Made It Marketing podcast where for an hour, I just delve into marketers and entrepreneurs' careers and businesses and all that. So what I'm bringing you today is not just, my personal experience, which is great, really more of what I've learned from others. And that's why I'm trying to pass it on to you today. And it's what we as an organization have learned from our experiments. There's my different contact info. You can take a quick screen grab of the screen if you want. Feel free to reach out to me, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever, I can't call it that. There's my email address. Feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. Partly a great thing that we've reported on and done so much is that if you've got a challenge, I like to say it's getting stuck and try to help people get unstuck. We probably have a case study or an example I can send you that's relevant to your industry or your challenge. So and real briefly, the organization, MeclabsAI, it's a parent company of MarketingSherpa and other publication marketing experiments. We've done this since the turn of the century. Funny term, but since the late 90s. And again, we conduct experiments. We have case studies. We just try to learn why people make the decisions they make and then teach others, basically. Now we have an AI that helps with that too. All right, so let's jump into it. This is what's called the Meclabs Conversion Sequence heuristic. Again, it's going to look complex. If you're not a math person, it's not a formula, don't worry. But we're going to walk through it step by step. It's a thinking tool. And if you probably Googled this right now, you'd see there's stuff written about it all over the internet. It's been around for a long time. And the way I like to think about it is, I'm sure people are kind of familiar with Six Sigma or TQM or some of these methodologies in manufacturing. I'll give you an example. I'm in Jacksonville, as I mentioned. I'm actually right across the street from Vistakon, the headquarters of the contact lens manufacturers, right? And Vistakon, I'm sure, has some sort of methodology that they use, a consistent methodology to ensure that the contact lenses, I'm wearing glasses now, but I wear Vistakon contact lenses. When I put them in my eye, they're good, right? Not, 10% of the time or 50% of the time, but there's probably 99.99999% of the time, those contact lenses are going to be good. However, in marketing, with your marketing, if you get a success rate, let's say a 3% conversion rate, a 5% conversion rate, maybe a 10% conversion rate, you're ecstatic, right? And what's the difference there? I think one of the differences with marketing, with business, with entrepreneurs, on your team, it's a lot of times we rely on the golden gut, right? This person just gets it on our team and this person just doesn't, or this person in my agency gets it, this person doesn't, right? We don't have a consistent methodology. At Vistakon, at the manufacturing line, I'm guessing it's not okay, Jill comes in today. Oh, she's really good at making contacts. We're going to have some good contacts today. But Bob comes in the next day. He's not as good. The contacts aren't going to be good, right? No, that would be crazy. They've got a consistent methodology. So here's what we try to do with this conversion index to try to give you a consistent methodology when you're looking for a yes, when you're trying to win a yes, when you're working on your marketing. And this could be, in your marketing in an ad, or this can be hey, I need to talk to an investor. I need to get a yes there, right? It could be I'm talking to a potential employee. I've used this conversion index when here at we've done recruiting, to hire people, right? I bring that conversion index in, and instead of trying to sell them on, hey, work with us, I just tell them, hey, here are the factors to consider when making a decision. Let's take a look at what this means for deciding where you want to work in your first job, right? So we've had, major organizations. We're at this bank in Toronto right before COVID. I haven't traveled much since then. And I remember the big CMO there, he said, hey, I put this up in my office, and every time I'm working on marketing or trying to get a yes, I think through these factors. So that's what this is. This is a thought tool. It's not a formula. So let's jump into what this means. A C equals 4M. Let's start with C, right? That's, as you know, we're trying to solve for. That's the probability of conversion. So what that means is if we look at these different factors, right, if we can kind of play with them in the right way, we can increase the probability of conversion. We're never guaranteed of a conversion. And if you're unfamiliar with the term conversion in marketing, that essentially means you're asking someone to do something and they say yes. We can never be 100% sure of one, but if we tweak these factors, all we're trying to do is increase that probability. Were we getting 10%? Could we get to 12%? What would that mean for our business? Could we get to 20%? Oh my gosh, right? So let's first look at that conversion, the ask that you make, right? So this is something fairly new. This heuristic has been out for a long time. We started doing some research into what we call customer first marketing. And we realized that it's not just the factors that you tweak to get the conversion, right? It's to start with making the right ask, right? If you have a conversion ask, if you're asking your customers for something, it's making the right ask. And so what I also like to do is I take that same conversion heuristic and I stack it and I talk about the different levels of marketing maturity, right? So at the base level, we're going to talk about some of these. It's incentive. So you probably see this in marketing a lot. Just throw out incentives, right? The car companies used to do that, right? They'd say $8,000, buy our car, right? We'll give you cash back, buy our car, right? So incentive is the base. We get up to friction and anxiety. We'll talk about value proposition, the motivation of the user. But at the highest level, it's customer first marketing. That is how we can do our most effective marketing. The nature of the conversion we ask, right? It's not just good for us. We put the customer first and see what's in their best interests. Now, I'm going to show you an example of that. But first, I want to make the case to you because you might say like, hey, Daniel, customer first marketing, it sounds all nice and squishy. I'm a very serious business person. I've got to meet payroll. I can't do things like this. But let me show you the business case. We conducted a nationwide survey with Nielsen. We had 2,400 Americans that were representative of all Americans. So, region, age, race, all of that stuff. And we asked them to go into two groups. One group of 1,200, we said, tell us about a company and think about a company you're satisfied with. And the other group of 1,200, we said, think about a company you're unsatisfied with, right? So we wanted to compare that. How do satisfied and unsatisfied customers behave, right? And so then we asked them a series of questions. And one question we asked them is, thinking about that company that you're either satisfied or unsatisfied with, how likely are you to doing the following, right? And one of the things was continue purchasing products and services from a company. And you would expect that satisfied customers would continue to purchase, right? Of course. But I was even amazed at the difference. Look at that. 66% of satisfied customers said they were very likely versus 8% of unsatisfied customers. That is a 713% difference. So this is where I make the argument to you of something you probably already know, hey, I should keep my customers satisfied. But when it gets hard to keep them satisfied, right? When it gets hard to put the customer first, remember how drastic that difference is. You can go out and keep trying to get new customers and spend all that money with Google or Facebook or sales or whatever you're doing, or double down and invest a little more in putting that customer first with what you're doing with your marketing and in keeping them satisfied. Some more data. Again, satisfied versus satisfied customers. Now we're talking about the marketing of the company, specifically what's true about the experience. It's grayed out, but if you see at the top, satisfied customers, number one thing they say is, I consistently have good experiences. You would expect that, right? Unsatisfied customers, the number one thing they say is the company does not put my needs and wants above its own business goals. In other words, it's not customer first, right? But the thing I called out here is number three for satisfied customers, over a third, you're never going to get 100%, right? The company doesn't always try to sell me, but tries to provide value. So think about your interactions with your customers. Again, not just your end customers. It could be anyone you got to win a yes from, investors, your employees, whoever. Like, are you always trying to sell them or are you focused on providing value? And most importantly, what do they feel? Right? Unsatisfied customers, 27% said the customer always tries to sell me instead of providing value. If we're the customer, again, this is why I try to put you in that customer mindset. Boy, we hate that when someone's always trying to sell us. I say, help, don't hype, right? Even with our marketing, how can we help our customers? I'm going to show you an example in just a minute. One more question here before we get into some other stuff. How do you feel company prioritizes your needs as a customer against some business goals? Again, satisfied customers, they feel like the priority. Unsatisfied customers don't. And some other data we saw too is the satisfied customers were more likely to be forgiving of the company. So it wasn't necessarily you'd think, oh, it's only a satisfied customer because everything we did was right. It was a satisfied customer because they felt like, okay, the company was acting in my best interest. So when they made a mistake, when that company made a mistake, the customer is more likely to be forgiving. And I'll give you an example, right? So I'm married and, when my wife, for example, asks me to take the garbage out and I forget or something, right? So when we're doing well in our marriage, in our relationship, when she feels like I'm putting her first, she'll be forgiving, like, oh, he's busy or, you know what I mean? It's people make mistakes, whatever. But if we're not doing well, if she feels like she is not a priority and I'm not putting her first, then she gets to question of like, well, wait a minute, why doesn't he take the garbage out? Like, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with our relationship? Blah, 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 blah. So that's why I'm encouraging you, customer first marketing, when you're asking your customer something, consider to put them first. So what does that look like, right? So it means creating a customer first objective. So this is from what we teach in our MeclabsAI Guild. But basically, ask yourself these three questions anytime you're putting an offer out into the marketplace. How will you help the customer, right? First, we're trying to help. right? How will you help the customer with that offer? So for example, in this example, to help administrators and hospital networks, right? How are we going to help them? Who's that customer helping? What will you give the customer to help them? Right. So this is where sometimes we make mistakes. Oh, I'll give the customer my product or whatever, right? But if the customer isn't ready for your product, maybe you just need to help them with something else like a free report or a webinar or something else, right? So how will you help the customer? What will you give the customer? And lastly, what will you ask for in return? Because you're always asking for something in return. And this is where it's important. Yes, it's obvious when you're actually selling a product, but if you're, engaged in, for example, lead generation and it's early in the process, and you do something like this, a webinar to get more leads, you may say, oh, I'm asking for nothing in return. But again, no, I'm asking for your time and attention right now. And those are very valuable things. So ask yourself these three questions. How will you help the customer? What will you give the customer? What will you ask for in return? Here's an example, or a lot of examples we have. This is probably my all-time favorite case study I've ever reported on. As I mentioned, I've done thousands. This is the company called, again, we're not affiliated with this company in any way. MarketingSherpa, we report on what companies do. We're a publication. It's a company called HCSS. They're a construction software company. And MarketingSherpa, we used to have these big summits. This was one of our best in show winners of our awards. So I interviewed this customer, got a video right there on a stage at the Aria in Las Vegas in front of 1,000 people because the story was so good. And basically, HCSS, what they were doing previously is they were doing traditional lead generation, right? They were focused on, we have a construction software to sell. Let's get people to buy our construction software, right? And then they realized, as Dan Briscoe is a VP of marketing, and he said, they realized, like, wait a minute, what if we just got out of our own way for a second and stopped only thinking about us? What if we really focus on our customers and said, what do our customers want and need? And it might not be our product. And they realized in the construction industry, the thing their customers most wanted and needed was employees, right? They were hard getting new employees into the construction industry. So what that meant for them is they said, hey, let's do this. Let's build this community called I Build America, right? And let's make it all about recruiting new workers into the construction industry. And you can see, like in the screen cap, there's a lot more in these case studies. I have source links down here below. We can go and read more about all this stuff. We have, again, full articles, videos, all this stuff. It's all free. Give you some more information if you want to dive in. I can only cover, obviously the very surface of it right now. So they had all this, they created this whole community, had social media, it had all this stuff. It had the big hats and all this, different stuff. And, and they recruited people in to be workers, and the community was all about not their own software, but why is it great to work in the construction industry? So now what do you think happened? So now all these construction industry companies, they see what's going on. They love this. This is helping them out. And what Dan had told me is this now brought them into conversations with companies that they never would have been able to before, against much bigger competitors, giant companies. He said, it changes the conversation with the customer. It's not about us and our software, right? So by putting that customer first with their offer, they were able to build that relationship and get into those conversations. And the result you'll see at the top, they got a 53% increase in revenue. Now, this is a drastic change, and I'm not necessarily asking you to make this big of a change, but I am asking you to go back and look at what you are asking customers, and is it what is in their best interest? Are you putting them first with what you're asking? So here's a few questions you can ask yourself to, again, I say, spur your best idea on your conversion objective. A lot of times when I've worked in this industry, I felt, like I get stuck. It's hard having ideas. You get stuck. So really what I'm trying to do here is give you ideas to get unstuck, to get your next great idea, right? Start with identifying that core customer need or problem, determine the value proposition. We're going to talk about that in a second. The value proposition, not just of your product or company, but of whatever you're asking. And then define metrics for success. How do I know if this is actually working, if I'm actually achieving this? All right, let's get moving more. So now that was the conversion objective. We're trying to increase and get more of those. How do we do that? The first thing I want to talk about is motivation. So let's talk about the numbers in front of these elements. The numbers don't mean, okay, you plug in some analytics and you multiply. The numbers mean how important each element is. So the motivation has a 4 because that is the most important element. If you can only do one thing, the most important thing you can change is tapping into your customer motivation. Now, when I talk about this, what I don't want you to feel is like, this is some trick or hack you can use, right? This is not a trick or hack you can use. When people join the AI Guild and they start working on those, one of the things they say is, as I'm sure you have, I've talked to all these gurus before. They've got all these tricks and hacks and shortcuts and blah, 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 blah. And the challenge is they often don't work, or if they do, they only work in the short term. But I'm trying to give you a sustainable business success. So when you look at this, it's not easy. And so we've got MeclabsAI. I like playing around. I like brainstorming. That's if I'm not going to get into AI today. I think that's too deep and too much. But if you use AI, I really encourage brainstorm where they don't just get outputs. So I built in our AI, it's very easy to build your own experts and apps and libraries. I built one I called AI Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is, very famous Greek philosopher. Like looking back at the classics, and I asked him, should I use tricks or hacks to solve my marketing problems? He said a bunch of things, but what I really liked, and this is what I'm trying to encourage you today, marketing, when practiced with honor, is an act of service, right? And that's what I talked about, the customer first marketing. How can we serve our customers with our marketing? All right, so let's look at motivation. Here's an example, an experiment that we specifically ran with a medical provider. It was an A/B test. If you're not familiar with A/B tests, basically what you can do online, and I don't know the level of the audience, so I might get a little too descriptive with some things, is you can show them two things, show half of people one thing, half of people the other thing. As long as you do it in a scientific and statistically valid way, then you can actually see what performs better. This is an A/B test. This was for a company that did back pain surgery, right? So the original ad, that's what we call the control, was, you can see it there, relief from back pain, right? But the question is, when we're looking to optimize, we're looking to improve, we're looking to tap into the motivation of customers better, how can we do that? How can we tap in better? So we tested a lot of treatments. I'm not going to show you all of them, but here's another one: avoid open back surgery, right? So we tested that. These were two ads: relief from back pain, avoid open back surgery. Avoid open back surgery had a 46% higher lead rate, as you can see that there. So what does that mean to you, right? They are selling the same thing here with relief from back pain and avoid open back surgery. But when you can better understand that customer's motivation and tap into it better, you can increase conversion. So there are probably a lot of different motivations you can serve with your product or service. Try different motivations out to see it, talk to customers and figure out what is the better motivation. Like, I can understand why this might work when you look at it in hindsight, right? So like, yes, if you have back pain, you're looking at a lot of ads, a lot of things are talking about relief from back pain. And yes, I don't want back pain. You're also maybe just early in there's a lot of back pains, right? I mean, I've thrown my back up before. It doesn't mean I'm going to get surgery, right? But when you're talking about avoid open back surgery, you are getting into the motivation of someone that's pretty far down that journey. It's not just, ooh, I tweaked my back. It's like, do I get back surgery? And then if I do, like, boy, I do not want to get open back surgery. That sounds really bad, right? So you can see how those, right, just changing a few words in an ad, you're tapping into a better customer motivation and pulling more people in. So here's some questions, again, trying to give you ideas. How can you get to the right motivation? Where's the customer in the thought sequence, right? That means there is this entire journey a customer goes through. It starts from not knowing anything even about your industry or that your category exists way over there, to all the way on the other side of like, I want that product or service and I want it right now. There's a whole journey they go through to get there. So understand, where are they in that journey? One thing that can also help you understand that is, where is that traffic coming from, right? So if you are optimizing, for example, your landing page, how are people getting to that landing page? What did they see before? That can indicate what their motivations are. What conclusions do your prospects need to make before buying? One thing that really helps, get into a room. If you've got a team, it's great. Get into a room with anyone you can and just map out all the different conclusions that people need to reach before they get to your product, right? Again, that starts with not even knowing your category to ultimately, like, what does it take to purchase it or become your customer, which could be in addition to monetary. What are their pain points, right? What are they suffering from? Like, that back pain's a great example. Is it just that their back hurts? Or is a real pain point like, oh my gosh, this is so bad, I need surgery and I want the simplest surgery as possible? And what do they value, right? Pain points on the one hand, what do they value? What are they looking for? We see this a lot in marketing. You got to be a little careful with it. You don't want to alienate any of your customers, but understanding what's important to them can help you tap into their motivation. All right, again, I am zooming through at a high level for elements of the conversion heuristic. We had previously a whole 8-hour course for this. We have tons of more content to go deeper into this. We've only got an hour today. We're taking the 10,000-foot view. Let's talk about the force of the value proposition.
We have one question in the chat, Daniel.
Great. What's that question?
Sorry, in the Q&A. So how do you define metrics of success when presenting the proposal to a potential client? I'm concerned about over-promising performance with offering projected numbers of what the success rate will be.
Yeah. So it's always hard to guess what success is. So the two things that you can do, one is if you see previous performance that they've done, obviously you can look at that previous performance to get a sense of like, okay, you've done this before. Let's see like what would a 10% or 20% increase look like. Let's see, if we can get to that point. If they have absolutely nothing that they've done before, the best you can do is go and try to benchmark performance from other organizations. What I always try to do if I'm projecting is give a range. Like I do not want to fake or pretend that I know it will be 10.12%, right? I take them on the journey with me. We go on the journey together. Like, okay, we can see either, let's take a look at some data. Here's what we've done before. Here's what others like you have done before. Okay, so we can surmise, we can do around here. So if we do these things, which usually involve, more money, better serving the customer, maybe we get the high end. But if we do these things, maybe we get the low end. And then you get a range of projections, right? And then that's the best you can do. And then what you also can do is not say, if they're skeptical or unsure, hey, now let's invest $1 million in it. If you have $1 million budget, let's say, let's take a $10,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 pilot. Let's test a bit. We'll get some data. Let's learn from it and move forward from there, right? Kind of like the test I just showed you. So whoever said that, thank you and congrats on the first question. You were brave and you spoke up, and I hope that helped you. All right, force of the value proposition. So when one of the things actually when we talk about value proposition, I know Score asked, hey, don't just share things from your organization, share things from other organizations too. So I just want to say, like when we talk about value proposition, some of the research we've done, it's a known term. We're not the only people that talk about it. Here's some books and some people that we've read and researched as we're getting into this. Here's a whole map I won't get into of all different people who've talked about value proposition, or maybe not that exact term, but similar concepts throughout history. Here's all different professors and thought leaders that we've talked to and interviewed. We had a big roundtable, like I mentioned, in our events in Las Vegas. So when I teach about this stuff, again, there's a lot behind it. It's not just we didn't just come up with it one day. So what is a value proposition? I'm sure you heard the term before. Here's how we define it. So it's very specific. You're answering this question. If I am your ideal prospect, why should I buy from you rather than any of your competitors? So if you thought right now, or like I want you to pay attention, so I don't want you to go do something else, but maybe in the 10 minutes after you get off the webinar, if you wrote down the answer to this question, see how well you've answered this question. I'm going to break down this question for you, right? If I'm your ideal prospect, why should I buy from you? It's that commercial application. So we start with the if I. It's a first person question. So as I was trying to do in the beginning of this webinar, trying to get you into the minds of the customers. We have this blind spot because we have these goals that we have to do. We need a certain amount of leads this quarter or sales. I said, you need to meet payroll. You're trying to make profit, all of these things. And that gets in the way of actually seeing what the customer wants. So what we're trying to do with this question is trying to get you into the customer's shoes. Your ideal prospect, right? There are a lot of customers that you should not serve. They are not your best customer, right? You got to find out who is the best customer for you and then serve the heck out of them better than anyone else. And I'll give you an example. As I mentioned, I do some coaching in the AI Guild. We had a consultant in the AI Guild that does, I think, like business construction consulting, different from the previous company I mentioned, right? And when I looked at a lot of his marketing, I said, hey, it looks like you're competing with any consultant in the world, right? With McKinsey or Accenture, any of the big ones, right? So if a customer goes and sees this, they're seeing this, or they're seeing, well, I can do any other consultant. However, if you found out who your ideal customer was, if you said, I serve, mid-size construction companies in the Adelaide region of Australia with whatever, when you find out that ideal customer, then when they get to your landing page or whatever you're selling, they see that, they get that click of, oh, this is just for me. This isn't just general. This is just for me. That's what we're going for, serving that ideal customer. Why should, right? Why do we ask why? Because you've got to come up with this reason, right? Why should they do this? That's ultimately what you're trying to communicate on your landing page, in your ads, and in any message where you're trying to get a yes in sales and marketing. And lastly, rather than your competitors, this is what we call the only factor. So sometimes what we see, often what we see companies do is they have an offer, right? It is for an ideal prospect. They have a reason they should buy, but it's not different than any other company. Then you're just a commodity. Why should they buy from you? You need an only factor. Why it's just for you, right? So now how do you answer that question? Well, you want these 4 elements in your value proposition, right? You need appeal. You need them to feel like they want it, whatever you're offering, right? That's at a base level. We hopefully do pretty good with that. Exclusivity, I can't get it anywhere else that I mentioned, right? The only factor. clarity. They need to understand it. There are many companies, I've gone to their website. I have no idea what they do. I've read their pitches. I'm really not sure. And lastly, that credibility, that they believe it. And this is the number one place where I see companies fall down. And how many marketing claims do you see out there that you just don't believe? That's why we talk about putting the customer first, but also helping customers come to their own conclusions. Like I said, help, don't hype. Don't try to sell them. Try to help them through the difficult process of determining if your company and is right for them, right? And your product, right? So here's an example. It was an email capture form. This is another experiment we did. As I mentioned, we ran experiments with companies. This was for a company that sells as like a database marketing company. It sells information about people. And this was their original control. Searching for the most accurate mailing list. Your hunt is over, right? So as we talked about that credibility factor, if you read that, or you're like, oh, great, my hunt is over. Like, this is perfect. Like, do you read that? Or are you skeptical? Or are you like, oh, they're just trying to sell me something, right? So here's what we did. We found, this is what we call buried gold, and you might find this in your own companies as well. We actually looked at the landing page. One thing that's really helpful now is you can use AI to help with your blind spots. I mentioned we have one called MeclabsAI. There's other AIs. You can actually put in all the information about you and try to like query and ask questions and ask what the value proposition is. We have that baked into our AI, but there's other AIs you can try to teach about value proposition and ask these questions. But one of the things we did is, we researched a company. We just looked at the page and we saw, look at this. It says, we make more than 26 million calls each year to verify and enhance your business database. It was on the page, but it was buried down there underneath that hype, right? So from this, we built a value proposition. Remember that question, why should I, blah, 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 blah. Here's the answer. Because we have the most comprehensive and accurate lead database. That's a start. That's an answer to that question. And Peel, exclusive, right? But there's still the credibility. Why should I believe it? Well, look, we also have evidentials behind it, right? We have evidentials, but here's what we do to make sure, one, we're comprehensive, and two, we're accurate, right? So now let's look at the new landing page, right? The most accurate mailing list available. Well, you might still not believe that, but what do we have right about it? We make 26 million phone calls a year to ensure you get the most accurate. And then we have some more information about it was trusted since 1972. It's got 210 million consumers, 14 million businesses, right? You see what we're doing here? We're not just trying to hype them or say how wonderful we are. We're trying to show them with information, with our value proposition. Boom, 200%, 201% relative increase in capture rate from doing that. The other thing I want you to understand is there's an overall value proposition for your company, which I'm sure you've heard of. But what we overlook is there's a value proposition at different levels, right? For every prospect you have, every group of ideal customers, they should have a specific value proposition. For every product you have, it should have its own value proposition. And even for every process, like I said, getting on this webinar today, a lot of times if we're selling webinars or content or blog posts, like, oh, it's free, come on. No, there needs to be a value proposition to get you on. That's why I worded the title that way. I could have worded it, hey, come learn about a boring heuristic that has to do with a lot of, different experiments and blah, 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 blah. I said, no, like was my best idea. Get into these decision catalysts, get into these things that probably all you have to do every day is understand why people make the decisions they do. Those are some of the positive elements. We're going to get into some of the negative elements, but I also want to mention, like I said, we got a lot of free resources out there about this. You can dive deeper. We're doing a 10,000 foot view. We got to go super fast. MarketingSherpa.com, tons of case studies and data articles. The How I Made It Marketing podcast. We get into the deeper stuff, the career lessons, how they build their business, how they build their marketing. We have a free course called Become a Marketer Philosopher. It's a free digital marketing course. We have the AI Guild. You could even join and kind of do this stuff with us directly. We have a free-month scholarship. So there's a lot out there that you can dive deeper into some of this if you don't get enough value out of today, because I know we're hitting at a very high level. Okay. So we talked about perceived value. Those are the positive things. So motivation, value proposition, you can change those on the positive side, but you don't only want to increase the perceived value, you want to decrease the perceived cost, which again is not just money. One of those factors of perceived cost is anxiety. See, that's why it has a minus in front of it. It's a negative. It's a perceived cost. Anxiety is psychological concern, right? We're going to talk about friction in a second. That's more resistance. Anxiety is concern. So here's an example of another experiment we ran. This was with a VoIP company. This was in the early days where VoIP was kind of new, voice over IP, for businesses to replace their traditional phone lines. You can see the traditional form on the left. I didn't do a great job with the screen capture. It looks pixelated. But two things I want you to notice. It has a phone number and it says get quote, right? That's what's on the forms. A lot of people do this form. there's anxiety there. What do you think when you see phone number and get quote? What do you think? You don't think, ooh, I'm going to be helped. You think I'm going to be hyped, right? You think, oh, great. Now I'm going to get like sales calls. They're going to try to sell me all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. That's not, nobody wants to be hyped. They want to be helped. So here we changed it. You'll see, get my instant quote. This is where you have to think about being customer first, right? I know I get this 100 times a day. Someone's trying to get me on a call. I get it on LinkedIn. I get it in my email. Sometimes people just even call me out of the blue. They don't even ask if I want to get on a call. Everyone wants to get on a call with me. I'm sure with you too, and with your customers. Nobody wants to go on a call. I'm busy. I'm working. I'm attending SCORE webinars, right? I don't have time for calls. However, I don't want to get on a sales call. I want to be helped. And so they said, how can we better help these potential customers? Let's just show them an instant quote. We don't need to get them on a call. All we need is their email address, right? So just look how that call to action button changed. Now, after this step, of course, you can say, hey, you need more information? Let's get on a call. Let's do whatever, blah, 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 blah. But you start with, how can I help them, not just hype them? So, as I mentioned, here's actually the bigger look at the entire page. I was just showing you the specific form. Here was the whole page. We did make other changes. I want you to see to the actual page itself. So when I show you these results, you'll know it wasn't just from that form I showed you, but that was just a specific example I was showing. There was a 262% increase in lead rate, right? So again, a lot of these things, when we're looking to improve our performance, we're looking to get more leads, we're looking to improve our business, a lot of the times we're looking like, oh no, can I increase my marketing budget? Can I advertise more? Can I get out there in front of, but a lot of times maybe you just look at what you're already doing and optimize it and do it in a better way. Look at it through this lens. Look at it through that heuristic we're saying. What can you change and try and increase? I see a question. He said anxiety is concern and friction is what? Friction is resistance, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So here are some questions you can use to brainstorm. This was brainstorming about the specific product when you're looking to reduce anxiety, right? What are some people thinking when they're actually going to your page? You can ask some other people. You can try things like focus groups. There's tools out there. You can do this. You could just even ask people you know. But here's some probably basic questions. Here's some ones we asked about this page to get there, right? How much is it really going to cost? Not that initial price. We all know what drip pricing is. How much is it really going to cost? Is this the lowest cost option? I won't read those all to you. You can see those on the screen. But are you answering these types of questions with your page, right? Because if you're not, people, you might pay a lot of money, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, to get people to a landing page or to get people to whatever, to your brochure. People are just going to drop off because they have anxiety. Reduce that anxiety. So this was the other element I mentioned. That's a negative. Friction. We're trying, that is a cost. Friction. Friction, we talked about concern. This is psychological resistance, right? This is the resistance element. And I will use a great example before I show everything that I live every day that I can say because I think most of the people are on in Florida. That's why I proudly wore my Jacksonville shirt today. My Jaguar shirt, go Jaguars. I'm lucky I have a content role. I get to do this and teach people all over the world. So it's a lot of fun, but I love that I have at least a somewhat local audience today, some fellow Jacksonville people, at least fellow Floridians. So everyone all over the world doesn't know about this company. I'm going to tell you, it's called Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. I'm sure you do if you're in Jacksonville or at least Florida, right? And here's what Chick-fil-A does that is brilliant to reduce friction. So my kids, especially when they were younger, they love fast food. I'm not as into it. And so I'd pull up, in certain areas of town, there are several fast food restaurants. There's Wendy's, there's Crystal's, there's McDonald's, whatever. So my main concern, I personally think they're all kind of unhealthy. I don't really care about that. My main concern is how can I get in and out quickly? So what I used to do is I would look at the length of the line at the drive-through. But here's what I found. Even if McDonald's has a shorter drive-through line, Chick-fil-A, they're all the way around the block and down the street. They'll get you through quicker. And why is that? If you've ever gone to a Chick-fil-A, they're reducing friction. McDonald's, I pull up, I'm trying to order, through the little thing, blah, 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 they can't understand me, pulling up again, it's taken forever, it's not ready. What happens when you pull up to a Chick-fil-A? Someone, I want to see if you can do it in the comments right now. What happens when you pull up to a Chick-fil-A when you're going to order, right? Does anyone know? They come to you. That's right, Jasmine. Those poor kids are standing out in the heat in Jacksonville, Florida with that black Tormac and all those cars running. And I feel so bad for them. And I thank them. They're right there, 2 inches from my face, asking me what I want. I'm paying right there. Pull around. They've got the order. I'm not even going to the window. They usually bring it to me. I'm in, I'm out, even if it's a long line. They're reducing friction. Now, that is a very specific example in the physical world. And if you have a store, some other physical location, you can do that. But now, let's take that to the digital and virtual world, right? Friction. There's two. This is another heuristic, but I'm going to make it simple. There's two things. There's length and difficulty. That's really what you need to know, right? So let me give you an example. This was actually MarketingSherpa case study I did. This guy wrote me. He attended the Google's XMS event in 2022. He saw this case study from Meclabs. He hadn't heard of them before, but he saw this case study. He hadn't heard of us. And it showed basically what you see, a long form with 9 fields, had a 10% conversion, a short form with 5 fields, 13.4% conversion, right? So it's one thing to look at. Hey, your form fields, can I lower them? So he said, hey, this is perfect for me. Because what I'm being challenged with at my job, it's called Bacula Systems. It's a some sort of tech company. What I'm being challenged with is I've got to get more leads, but you know what I'm not getting more of? Not getting more budget. So he looked at his form and he said, well, wait a minute. Yeah, of course, we all want to decrease form fields, and that's, the nicest thing to have the smallest form fields possible. We do need some information. He said, wait a minute, there are 2 form fields on here, right? One of them is, are they using Bacula already? Like, well, why do we even really need to ask them that, But the other one is, what is the total number of machines that you want to protect? And so he thought, like, well, wait a minute, this is friction, right? Not only is it making the form longer, right? So there's length there, but there's also difficulty-oriented friction, right? So before they get to this field they want to fill out, and they're like, oh, wait, no, shoot, now I got to go calculate. I got to go ask Jim, and I got to go ask, Fred and Jane and all these other people, and I got to tabulate how many machines do I have. It's a required field, so I can't fill out this form. So they leave, and what happens? Do they come back? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So he did something very simple. He removed those 2 fields. How much does that cost you? Cost you a lot less than increasing your advertising budget, right? Pretty simple. Conversion rate went from 2.4 to 3.44%. But I said, wait a minute. Here's what the skeptics are going to ask, Andre. They're going to tell me, well, no, I need a longer form because I need higher quality leads. And that's true. You don't want low quality leads. You want higher quality leads. You want just anyone to, quote, call them a lead. But he said, look at the grade of my leads. They barely changed. Before, A grade leads were 22%, after 21%. Barely changed. We're basically asking information at a point in the customer journey where we did not need to ask it. That was friction. Here's another example, because not all friction is bad. I host the How I Made It in Marketing podcast. What I make people do is go through a podcast guest application process, right? I do that because friction has a plus side, right? A lot of podcasts are just reaching out to people. I get them all the time on LinkedIn. Would you be on my podcast, right? I'm like, no. You want to be on the podcast? Fill out a podcast guest application, because at the end of the day, it's not that I want guests. I want guests that are really going to have this mindset to serve our audience and put in the hard work. It's hard to make a good podcast to serve our audience. Are they going to put in the work? So when you think of friction, we think about these dials. There's quantity and quality, right? When we turn up friction, we're going to make more friction. We're going to have less leads, but they could be higher quality. They're willing to go through a lot more to get there. We could also turn down friction, right? So we get a higher quantity, but they might be lower quality, right? So here's an example. What you can do with 2 steps, right? So 1, you can increase quantity by reducing the form fields in step 1, right? So for example, you can just go to field A and B, maybe just name an email address. So you're getting that quantity in. But then on step 2, to increase quality, you can ask for that additional information. If you or your sales force says, hey, I need a phone number, I need whatever certain information is going to cause friction, well, do a 2-step form. On step 1, you're shooting for quantity. On step 2, you're shooting for quality. What's going to happen? There's more friction on step 2. Not everyone's going to fill it out. So you're going to get the highest quality leads immediately, but you're also going to get name and email address. And if you have the proper opt-in language, then you can continue to have a relationship and serve them with your email. Serve with email till they get to the point where they want to raise their hand and give more information. And then less people are going to drop off. Here's a bunch of questions I can ask. You can read most of it on the screen. I don't need to read to you. I know you can all read. But basically, you want to look through your process from when you first meet a customer to when you have that final interaction. That could be your homepage, your landing page, your website, your app, whatever you have, your forms, your emails, everything you have, even in your physical location, and see, is there anything unnecessary or confusing? Am I making life harder for them in ways I don't need to? But you can also ask, hey, there are certain things I need to ask to make sure they are qualified. For example, I'm just making this up. If you are selling a truck service or whatever, you might need to make sure they have a CDL license, a commercial driver's license. I don't know, right? So there are certain places in the process where you do need to have friction, where you shouldn't drop it off. All right, lastly, let's talk about incentive. So incentive is
Daniel,
a,
I just have one question.
please, yes, jump
So
in.
in the Q&A, someone asked, why do you give so much of your research and teachings away for free? I'm sure you get this a lot.
So if you remember what I said at the very beginning, I said customer first marketing, right? Customer first marketing, put the customer first. So we have two ways that we go about our business, right? At the end of the day, we do sell a product. We sell MeclabsAI. AI. You go to MeclabsAI.com. You can try it out for free a whole bunch before you buy it. We sell things like artificial intelligence quick win intensive, where we get directly with companies and we help plan their strategy for artificial intelligence, value proposition workshops, quick win intensives. We'll go through help with your value proposition, help with your quick wins, and we could do this one of two ways, right? We could do this in a us way. We could spend money on ads. We'd get in front of you and say, buy from us, buy Meclabs AI, right? It's great. Oh, it's the best thing ever. It's the best AI in the world, right? Buy an AI quick win intensive. It's the most amazing thing ever. We could do that, right? That's hype, right? Or instead of making those claims, which is kind of yucky to me anyway, we could let people come to their own conclusions. We could say, instead of investing that marketing budget in making claims and hyping people, we're going to invest that marketing budget in helping people. And that's what we do. So we help, right? And I will say probably 98 or 99% of the people who subscribe to MarketingSherpa's free email newsletter, listen to the How I Made It Marketing podcast, or even are start in the AI Guild, they probably don't even pay us a dime. And that's okay. Because then by the time the people come to that conclusion of like, hey, I have a specific need that Meclabs AI can help me with, or this AI Quick Win Intensive, the AI Guild, right? What happens? They've come to that conclusion themselves. We don't have to sell them, right? We're not doing an RFP. We don't have to sell them. Then what we're doing is just trying to help them come to that final determination of, is this the right fit for them? Should they do it for them? So that's why I say, when I was showing all that data for customer first marketing, look, when I tell you this, it's going to feel like, oh, like, you're, I don't know, all touchy feely and just want to be helping the world or whatever, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, one, there's a business case. Two, okay, I do want to be touchy feely and help the world. I started my career, as I mentioned, as a traditional copywriter. For example, I wrote ads in the Wall Street Journal. People did not read the Wall Street Journal because of my ads. They read it because they wanted that information. We tried to get in their way and say, hey, buy this thing. That was fine. It's creative. It's one thing. But it's a lot more fun to take this approach. It's a lot more fun to have my job to be get on here and try to help you people, try to help everyone with our research. And then the people that we actually deal with are like really excited to deal with us. So I hope that answers your question. I'll jump into incentive. So like I said, incentive, this is like very often misunderstood. The whole point of incentive is to just be that little extra thing. We talk about there's cost and value, right? We talk about there's perceived cost and perceived value. There's that kind of like weighting that people do, like a seesaw or whatever. We're just trying to, when sometimes it's pretty equal, we're just trying to tip it a little extra towards value, right? That's where you see it's the I is set off with the F of friction. It's that little extra incentive to go through the friction it's going to take to be our customer. Where people make mistakes and where businesses make mistakes is they only use incentive. That's the easy way out. I like to call it the bacon of marketing tactics, because I am not a good cook, but I will tell you this: you could take anything, throw some bacon in, it will taste better. You could have a plain kale salad, you throw some bacon on, it will taste better, right? So people just use it for everything, versus a real chef who knows how to make a lovely meal, doesn't need to throw bacon in, doesn't need to throw salt in, has all those lovely fresh ingredients. That's using motivation and value proposition and things we talked about. The other reason the business case not to overuse incentive is you are hurting your margins, right? If you've got a discount with everything, if you got to throw things free for everything, right? You're killing your margins. You cannot have a sustainable business that way. But incentive is good just to overcome that extra little bit of friction. So let's talk about it briefly. Here's what I was talking about, right? You're just trying to weigh it a little more to perceive value to offset the friction. Let's look at a quick example. This is a test we did. I love this test because this is to talk about, we've done trainings, we've done paid trainings too. Obviously, we're not doing everything for free. I don't want to mislead you, right? After a training, one of the people who attended, he owned an agency, and he reached out. He was so excited because he did this test for incentive and it worked well for him. And so basically what he said, this was for a client, again, I think it was a tech client, and they had an incentive, and they were thinking they had $25 Amazon gift cards, and they offered 20 of them. And they said, well, it would cost the same amount of money to offer 10 $50 Amazon gift cards. So what if we tried that instead? And what they found is they tested the incentive on the landing page, and they found that incentive 2, again, same outlay to the company, but different perception to the customer, $50 gift card. You only get 10 of them though. They had a 31% increase in conversion rate on that, right? So that's a great example of your incentives, some questions you can ask, right? To determine what are the best incentives to use. Is it in line with the motivation of your customers, right? And do they understand the value of that incentive? Okay, here's your cheat sheet at the end. Take a screen cap if you want. I think you can see the replay. I guess you can see everything in the replay anyway. So now you come to all this complexity at the front and we're like, oh my gosh, there's this, big heuristic and how would I apply it? If you had to break it down to everything, when you're looking at whatever your marketing is, however you're communicating to your business, however you're even going in person to do a presentation to ask someone, is there something I should add, remove, or change, right? The easiest thing to do is remove, right? Sometimes, like we said, friction. There's just things getting in the way. We've had examples with major credit card companies where they had like a 3-step process. We just removed the middle step and increased, conversion increased a lot. They didn't need it, right? What do you need to remove? What do you need to change? Maybe it's just slightly changing the headline. What you actually need to add, which is the hardest thing to get in there. When we're talking about motivation, here are some basic questions, activities, and analysis you can do to tap into that customer motivation, right? So that's just kind of like your cheat sheet at the end. Gave you a lot of difficult things. I want to make it easy. We got 4 minutes left.
We
Let's
have a
make the most of
question
this
in the
time.
Q&A.
Please, more questions. Throw them at us.
All right. So the question is anonymous and it says, hi, I've been having problems with outages in this area and therefore have been unable. Oh, okay. No worries. So the session will be 5 days after today. The recording will be sent out to everyone. So no worries about it. I thought that was pertaining to the business. No worries. The meeting will be sent out to everyone who is an attendee. 5 business days after today, you will get the link for the recording. Okay, Daniel, I do have a question. Do you
Yes.
guys do, excuse me, do you ever do evaluations of people's websites and things like that? Because I'm not just a SCORE webinar host, but I'm also a business owner. And I love all the information you shared here today. And I have a very unique business. And it's one of those things that once people experience it, it's amazing, but it's hard to convey. So what we've been doing is adding testimonials to our website and things like that. And this past weekend, so I conduct blindfold dinner experiences to help people increase mindfulness and awareness. So we had an event this weekend. Everyone posted about it before and after. So I screenshot all of their information after the event, and now I posted it on my website as testimonials. Plus, we do video testimonials and things like that. Do you guys ever do evaluations?
So I'll talk about testimonials specifically in just 1 minute, but to answer your question specifically, if we do evaluations, here's the great thing about new technology and artificial intelligence. So we had offered evaluations, and the hard thing is, it's a direct consulting service. It's pretty expensive, and so we used to only work with very big companies. Now artificial intelligence came out, and the great thing is we've been able to take that patented methodology I talked about, which you saw a little bit about, and we've programmed it into our own AI, MeclabsAI. So anyone now can go to MeclabsAI.com. We have different experts, apps, and libraries in there. You can see a little drop-down box at the bottom. Choose the website analyzer drop-down box for the apps. Put in your website, and it will start analyzing it for you, right? Now, the way AI works is some people have a misnomer. They think, our owner, Flint McGlaughlin, likes to say, they have this mentality it's a vending machine. They just go into like a chat GPT, they ask it something, it gives it a headline, they put it on their page. I don't find that it works best that way. Yes, it can give you outputs, it can write emails for you, whatever. You want to brainstorm with it. So it will start a conversation going with you, and you start brainstorming with it, and it'll analyze your web page and give you ideas. Another thing we do that starts free and it's very low cost, we have something called the AI Guild, right? So this is where people can join, and we have a series of classes and small cohorts and an online community, and we do group coaching where we walk you through step by step. Like, again, I did this in an hour. We've got different 8 and 12 week courses where we walk you through step by step and do group coaching on first setting up that right offer and making sure then you actually build web pages that reflect that offer. And at the highest level, we do work directly with companies. We have our AI Quick Win Intensive that's focused around artificial intelligence. We have a Quick Win Intensive that will look through your funnel and your page and help you find, again, the quick wins to increase conversion. And we have value proposition workshops. Those obviously are higher price point things, but MeclabsAI and the AI Guild, those are, both start out free. So you can even try them out and see what you get from it. I want to mention something about testimonials specifically because you asked about that. So the way to use testimonials is to address this C equals 4n plus 3v that we talked about, right? So first you look at your webpage and you walk through what are the motivations, what are the value prop, all these things. And then you use those testimonials to answer that. I'll give you an example. A lot of people put testimonials on, like, remember, like if you were applying for college or if you get it, like they're saying like, oh, we need a letter of recommendation, right? And basically sometimes I think those letters of recommendations were just like, is there anyone that you know, like a former teacher that would say like, yes, just, either hire this person or put them into school, right? And so sometimes we use testimonials that way. It's like, ooh, someone's saying something nice about us, because we're not thinking about that exclusivity factor, right? We're not looking at it, and we don't think that like, oh, pull up the tabs of 3 other companies they can look at, and they've all got the same testimonials. So how do they decide? So what I use a testimonial for is I pull out something that addresses either point of friction, point of anxiety, a point of value. For example, I mean, I don't 100% understand your service, but if you're saying, I might think like, oh, well, is your service for me because I don't own a business, I only work at a business. Maybe that's a major point of anxiety. I'm just making that up. So a value proposition, a testimonial I would have a little headline above it. If you get this right, testimonial, like, I'm not a business owner, but this helped me. That's the headline that you can write. And then you can have that testimonial that talks about this. I'm only starting out my career, but this helped me too, even though I'm not a business owner, right? So again, everything that we have on our webpage, on our landing page, on everything we put in front of the customer should help, not hype the customer, including testimonials. And we can use this heuristic to determine that.
Got you. That was good. Thank you. And I'm on the website now, so I appreciate it. And we do have 3 more questions. Okay.
Perfect.
So first off is fantastic presentation. This is from Anonymous. Is the 8-hour version of it available?
So the 8-hour version was something that we had sold for a very long time. And it was older, so we made a new version. So that is not currently available out in the marketplace. The only way we do make it available, the way you can get it, is for AI Guild members. We do have it available for AI Guild members. So what you would have to do, we have a 3 free month scholarship for the AI Guild. After that, I think it's only like $20 a month or something like that. But go to join.meclabsai.com. You can join the AI Guild. Once you're in there, ask for it. Like once you get into the AI Guild, ask for it, and then we can make it available to you. But we only do that on a case-by-case basis when people ask for it, because again, it's kind of an older course. We have a newer free course at meclabs.com/course that walks through a different micro-ES methodology, some different things. This is just one of the many things we teach, but that's the best thing you can do is go to MeclabsAI.
And I just put that in the chat as well, everyone. You can find the AI Guild there, as well as I'm dropping the website in the chat right now. So both of those are there. Okay, next question, Daniel. Bonnie says, thank you for this basic overview. Has given so much to change on my website and customer form. So she just wanted to thank you.
Thanks for
And
attending, Bonnie.
then Joyce says, thank you for this training. Many important insights that we will try to follow. Looking forward to receiving the recording webinar. All right. And Robert is next. Suggestions for applying this in a face-to-face farmers market setting. What do you recommend?
Oh, exactly. Okay, here's the great thing about applying this in a face-to-face setting is you're getting instant feedback from that customer, and it's interactive. So what makes it so hard on our landing page and why we have to use this is, right, we're not getting instant feedback. So we do see some analytics over time, right? And it's a little harder to make it interactive. We have quizzes or whatever, we could try to make it interactive. It's interactive in real time. So I would walk through these elements, right? So motivation, first of all, don't start by selling them something and don't start by forcing them onto them. Start by seeing how you can help them, determine their motivation, ask them the right motivation questions for them, right? So I'm not sure what your business is, but, for example, if I was selling bread or something, I might ask like, what, type of sandwiches do you like to eat or something, and if they're saying, oh, I like pastrami, then I'd be like, oh, well, we have this rye bread, right? And if they're like, I like, meatballs, and I'd be like, oh, well, we have hoagie bread, right? So first, don't start by telling, start by asking, because you're trying to figure out that motivation. Once you figure out that motivation, then you have a series of value props, right, that you can use to serve that ideal customer. As we talked about, there are prospect level value props. You can go to that one and start there and kind of go with that feedback. I'll give you an example. We have a member of the AI Guild, and they sell like a handmade shampoo. It's like shampoo bars that they make by hand. So it's, I guess better for the environment, better for your hair. And I don't 100% understand. But they also, they have it selling online, but they also go to farmers markets. And so I talked to them about like farmers markets are great because you can test so much there, right? Ask questions, test different value propositions, see how people react, right? I would definitely not go and just say I have one value proposition. I would brainstorm 3 or 5 for different people, talk about them, test them out, and then make notes, right? Essentially doing different versions of the A/B testing we could do online and saying, here's what resonated, here's what didn't, and ask people for feedback. Like I think most people, depending on the situation, will give you feedback and want to help. You have to do it in a way, I will warn you though, that you show them that you are truly open, because sometimes they'll just give feedback to be polite. Like you need to specifically say, like, even though I'm a founder and I'm focused on this company, I love this company, like, please don't be polite with me. Please tell me what you really think. And then you can get the best feedback, right? Or you can get specific and say, like, tell me one thing that I need to improve. One thing I notice with founders a lot is we work so hard on our companies, right? We invest so much in them. We look for shards of hope. So we don't listen to the 9 customers who say something bad. The one customer that might say something good but didn't buy, we tap into that. We really got to be careful not to deceive ourselves and to force ourselves to get that really honest feedback.
I think that's it. That's
All right.
it
Well, thanks.
for, oh wait, nope, sorry.
Oh,
Okay. So you won't, we do have a question. Someone's asking about the slides. So you won't receive the slides, but you will receive the recording. The recording will be sent out 5 days after today. So again, you will not receive the slides, but you will receive the recording, which will be sent out 5 business days after today. Next one, the person says, Ryan says, great presentation. Thank you. The help versus the hype aspect is an amazing consideration. For clarity, help equals customer focus, where hype equals company, product, service focus.
that's very good, Ryan. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I'll also mention too, I don't know, I guess Score doesn't officially send the slides out. If anybody wants to email me, LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, I'm the only Daniel Burstein. Reach out to me. I don't mind sending you the slides. I'll send them to you directly.
There you go. Please reach out to Daniel. His email is in the chat for everyone. Please get the email. Daniel, can you drop it in the chat again? Your email?
Yeah, sure. And again, if you don't end up finding my email, like I'm pretty much the only Daniel Burstein. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use. Oh, whoops.
Awesome. And
I
Robert
just did my
says,
LinkedIn
thank
account. Let me
you.
try my email address again. I didn't tap it in.
Robert says, thank you for the presentation. Now, Anonymous has asked, when you mention you use AI, it sounds like you are using one of the LLM to do questions and answer system. Which third-party LLM are you using, or did you train your own LLM?
Yeah, that's a great question. Someone knows about AI. So we've built MeclabsAI and trained it ourselves. Right now, it's built on 2 LLMs, and this might get too deep for a lot of people, but part of it is built on the OpenAI API LLM, and the other part is built on the Google Gemini Vertex. So the part as I mentioned, it's not only that you can use MeclabsAI yourself to use what we've built in with our methodology to do some of these things. You can then build your own apps, experts, and libraries, and essentially make a virtual version of you and your company and your services. And to do that, like the Google Gemini Vertex helps with that as well.
Awesome. All right. So thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Again, you will receive the presentation recording 5 business days after today. You are appreciated. Please go on and consider becoming a SCORE mentor. Visit score.org, as well as you can check out what other workshops we have coming up. Daniel, are you teaching anything else that people might want to consider?
So I do teach a course in the AI Guild that helps. Again, it's mostly group coaching. We give a lot of this content where people click on their own, and then mostly it's group coaching, and the group coaches together about looking through your funnel. And that's in the AI Guild. It's called MEC 300, Developing Your Creative.
Are you teaching anything else for SCORE?
Oh, we've talked about different things. We actually talked about, maybe if you want to give them some feedback, I hope it's okay for me mentioning this. We didn't do this officially, is having more of kind of like an interactive group coaching session where we could pull up your marketing or landing pages or, whatever you want to talk about. And like an individual is getting that feedback, but everyone else can hear
In real
from that
time,
feedback
yeah.
and get those principles. I think we talked about as a general idea, so I don't know that it's 100% going to happen, but that's, again, something we do in the AI Guild. So it'd be fun to do that with SCORE as well.
Okay, so know that that may be something coming down the pipeline. Again, thank you all for attending today. Daniel, thank you for an amazing presentation. And you guys stay tuned to see what else is coming down the pipeline. Visit score.org and look up other workshops that you might be interested in and aligning to support your business. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Daniel. Thank you.